What's up, guys? NBA season is getting started here tonight. The Phoenix Suns played their first basketball game tomorrow. We are so excited. It's going to be an amazing season, hopefully, for the Phoenix Suns. But today, we're talking about why exactly they can win a championship this year because going into last year, hopes were high for this team, and the national media, the public's consensus was that this is going to be a solid team here in the Valley, and it was far from that. Well, I mean, I guess you could say they were solid, but Frank Vogel did not hold up his end of the bargain. They were a middle of the pack defense. Not what you need. They weren't shooting threes. The offense was way stagnant, sticking Kevin Durant in the corner and just not utilizing players and maximizing their skill sets. So why is this year going to be different for the Phoenix Suns? Well, let's get started with the biggest reason why, Mike Budenholzer. Now, Budenholzer coached in Milwaukee for about 5 years, had some success winning a championship, and was consistently one of the best regular season coaches in all of basketball. And sometimes it didn't exactly translate into the playoffs. You could argue that maybe that was a little bit of Giannis being slightly one-dimensional during some of those playoff series, but that's besides the point. So in Milwaukee, during those incredible regular seasons, you would consistently see the Milwaukee Bucks being top 10 in both offense and defense. Now, I don't exactly think Budenholzer is going to be able to coach this Suns team to a top 10 defense. He just doesn't have the personnel he had in Milwaukee. I mean, a Drew Holiday, Giannis Antetokounmpo, like so many good, consistent offensive and defensive players that made his job a little bit easier. But one thing he is going to bring to this team is they're going to shoot a lot of threes. Over the preseason, they're shooting 47.5% of their shots. They're the three ball, and that's up from 37.8 last year, and that was, bottom 7 in the league last year. So it was something that they needed to get up, and I'm sure it was the major point of emphasis this offseason for Mike Budenholzer, and it's something that can completely revolutionize this team. I've talked about it a couple times here on this channel, and if you haven't seen me before, please subscribe. We're cooking up some great stuff for this season. We got Suns content, we got Sun Devils content, Cardinals, right? We're cooking up everything. But I've talked about how this team just didn't run a modern day offense last year and how much it hurt them in the long run. And that's not going to happen with Mike Budenholzer. He's better at keeping players accountable. Vogel tried to keep players accountable, but it was already too late. He had already lost the locker room at that point, and we all remember that infamous Clippers game where they just got blown out, and Vogel in the locker room started yelling, and allegedly a couple of players laughed, and that kind of just spelled the end of the Frank Vogel era in Phoenix. I hope he's doing well, but we don't need you back here anytime soon. So now, another reason why this team can win a championship is we're going into year 3 of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, okay? They were a solid tandem last year, both putting up 27 points a game. You could argue either one is the better player, and that's exactly what you want if you were the Phoenix Suns. You want both of these guys playing at the peak of their powers, and Kevin Durant had to shoulder a massive load last year. I believe last year was his most healthy season since the Achilles injury. So we got some great stuff out of Kevin Durant, and he pretty much single-handedly carried us through that first half of the season. And he, frankly, is the only reason why we ended up winning 49 games last year. I mean, without Kevin Durant, but what is the 2023, Phoenix Suns? Nothing. They're really nothing. Bradley Beal started the season injured. Devin Booker got injured in the first game against the Warriors, I believe. So it was a long season. But Kevin Durant should shoulder less of a load this year. If Mike Budenholzer wants to have this team ready to go come playoff time, he needs to manage this team well, okay? The Suns have a decent bench. They didn't have a good bench last year, and that pushed Vogel's back against the wall, making him play Kevin Durant, 37 minutes a game, right? That's something we can't have. I don't want to see Kevin Durant playing many back-to-backs. I do want to see him play on Saturday, though. The back-to-back, playing the Lakers on Friday, Mavericks on Saturday. That's our home opener, and I'll be there. So I really hope he plays. But after that point, he does not need to play any more back-to-backs this season. The NBA should really go about just getting rid of the back-to-back. We don't need it anymore. The players hate it, coaches hate it, fans would be fine. It's the same amount of games. No one's like, oh, I really need a back-to-back today. Like, wish there was some basketball, right? There's so much basketball always being played that you can find a way to make yourselves entertained, right? Or you could just watch me, obviously. So Kevin Durant having to shoulder less of a load and being involved in the offense more, right? How many turnovers last year were just balls that were just lazily thrown to Kevin Durant? That's not what we want. He can play well just as his own little slasher and assassin, right? But putting him in the offense and minimizing the amount of times he has to go and do it all on his own will, one, keep him healthier throughout the season, because it is something I am a little concerned about, and two, just make him overall more effective. He can play better defense, even though he was already a pretty good defender last year. He can lock down a little bit more on that end of the basket, on that end of the court, because he's asked to do less. Now, as we move to Devin Booker, Devin Booker just needs to play his role, right? We asked him to be a point guard last year. Not a great idea. We learned from our mistakes. I could see him running the point guard position in some rotations, barring injury and all that good stuff. But for the most part, in that starting lineup, Tyus Jones is going to have the ball in his hand to start a possession. And that's when Devin Booker's at his best. Booker probably had his best numbers last year, but you can't tell me that was a better version of Devin Booker than when Chris Paul was a part of this squad. You just can't. He's better with the point guard. We all love Point Book, and we'll get to see him at times this year, but I'd like to limit how often we are using Point Book. Now, the biggest X factor for this team, it's been talked about nonstop all offseason ever since he had that disastrous Game 4 at home in the playoffs, went running off the court after fouling out Bradley Beal. Okay, Bradley Beal had an up and down season last year, right? I actually think he played a little bit better than people give him credit for. Shot well from 3, 42%. Was effective from the field goal, in field goal shots, right? Decent defender. I believe he's probably a plus defender. He's not going to shut anybody down, but he made some big plays for us, namely that Kings game towards the end of the season where he really took it upon himself to just go out there and win the game. And it's sad that we really only saw 2 or 3 of those. The 2 that come to mind is that Kings game and then the Lakers game earlier in the season where he dropped over 30. I don't exactly remember what it was. But Bradley Beal, if he can either choose to be more consistent and healthy or choose to replace Grayson Allen on the bench, Grayson Allen gets bumped up to that small forward position, he could be a massive contributor for the team this year. And a lot of people can't separate the player from the contract, okay? Bradley Beal is obviously getting paid a lot of money this season. But the season started, the roster's set. How much money Bradley Beal is getting paid does not affect anything anymore. That's an issue for the offseason. So everybody who likes to bring Bradley Beal down because of his contract, that's not going to affect how he plays. So if he can play solid, we don't need him to put up 30 like a $50 million contract would expect you to do. We need him to be solid. The team is the team at this point. So go out there and play the role that's needed for you. That's what Bradley Beal needs to do this year. Whether that is starting or on the bench, we'll see. Obviously, he's going to start starting. But if the Suns figure out something that is objectively better than having Bradley Beal play heavy minutes, then why keep going? Once again, you're already paying the contract regardless of if he plays 0 minutes or 40, right? So adjust accordingly. And as we move to the bench, Tyus Jones. Can't forget Tyus Jones. All he has to do is just not turn the ball over. Him and Monte Morris, I'll dip into the bench a little bit here. As long as they dish the ball around, get the ball where it needs to be, hit their threes at about 40 to 41%, That's all this team needs from them. They don't need they nice it would be nice to get some good defensive contributions from them, since they will be going up against whoever the other team's smallest player is. And when you're playing a team like the Mavericks or the Knicks, that's tough, man. Uh, but Budenholzer's smart. He'll find a way to scheme around that, you know. So as we move to the bench, okay, the players I'm expecting to get heavy bench rotation minutes this year, and this might be very controversial. So let's start out with the two obvious ones, Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal. Okay, those guys are the most consistent non-Big Three Nurkic players last year, right? So obviously they're going to get the most minutes. We sank a lot into Royce O'Neal, so I'd be shocked if he didn't play, right? He's a good defender, gets a lot of steals, is exactly what this team needs off the bench. And Grayson Allen scoring off the bench with Monte Morris dishing to him is going to be unbelievable to watch. And it's going to be a sneaky little storyline to see just how that relationship develops as the season goes on. Now, other players I think will get heavy minutes. Ryan Dunn, I think he's played his way into minutes this year. I mean, a lot of people had questions about his offensive game, and it looked shaky at times in the preseason, but there was other times where he looked absolutely incredible. So, you know, if they can get a moderately productive offensive player out of Ryan Dunn, that's going to be absolutely game-changing for the squad, okay? Because his defense is legit. Now, I think that Mason Plumlee will probably get more minutes than Oso Iguodala. Do I want Mason Plumlee necessarily getting a lot of minutes a game? No. I think he's better than Eubanks. Sorry. I think he's better than Eubanks, but I don't think Plumlee's some kind of world beater out here, right? He's better than Eubanks. He's an upgrade at that position, but he's not that much. He's lost his step. He's not as good defensively, and he's okay offensively. He can finish around the rim decently. I mean, anything's better than Nurkic, right? But Nurkic is still going to play a lot. So, yeah, Mason Plumlee's going to get more minutes than Oso Iguodala. And then Yusuf Nurkic, right? He's a guy that everybody is really down on. Most lists I see of best starting centers in basketball, he's at the bottom or near the bottom. You know, people are very down on him. His finishing around the rim, frankly, sucks. Okay? He's a liability in space, and we didn't really utilize him much as a passer last year. So it's going to have to be different this year, okay? I've seen some people suggesting that Coach Bud could make him into a Brook Lopez. Now, I don't think there's really any chance of that happening at all, right? He's just not very good from the three, so I don't think one offseason's going to change that for him. But if he can shoot, 35% from three, have him take a couple, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So as long as he continues to have good hands in the paint and he can develop a slight three ball to give us a little bit more spacing, that's all we're going to need from him, right? This big three is fantastic. I know a lot of people don't like the term big three, but I'm going to use it because there's no better way to describe them. They're all $50 million players, right? They got to go out there and play like that. But yeah, that's exactly all those reasons I just gave is why they can win a championship. I mean, the big three, Coach Bud, Yusuf Nurkic playing somewhat passable, the point guards not turning the ball over, all of those things combined will hopefully propel this team into championship contention. If you look around the league, there's a lot of, difference on where people think the Suns will end up. Some have them as low as the 6th seed, where we were last year, right? And then others have them as high as the 2 seed. I know King of the Fourth Quarter, who I really enjoy watching, he had them at the 2 seed. So, hopefully the Suns are productive this year. Hopefully they don't disappoint us. Hopefully we actually have some fun moments with these guys. I mean, how much longer are we going to get to see Kevin Durant on the basketball court? Hopefully a couple more years, but 2, 3, and how many of those will be as a Phoenix Sun? I know there's a lot of questions around his contract, but he seems fine with that. The Suns seem fine with it. I know there's the under 38 rule, so maybe they're just waiting for him to turn 38 years old and give him a 2-year extension. Who knows? I don't know. Um, that's something we'll find out next offseason. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Those are my reasons why the Suns could potentially win a championship. Am I guaranteeing it? No. It's an uphill battle, right? The Mavericks are incredible this year. The Thunder are incredible this year. The Knicks, the Celtics, all Bucks, if they can get back to what they were a couple years ago under Suns coach, then they can be a solid team. You got to look at the Timberwolves. Even after the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, that team's a lot deeper than it was when we played them, and we struggled with their depth. So nothing's certain this season, and that's why you got to watch, right? There's going to be a whole lot of drama, and it's going to be entertaining, and that's all we can say. So thank you so much for tuning into this video, and stay tuned for more Suns content.